Okay, so this is the Daf Yomi for April 23rd, 2025. We're in Makkot 15. Okay. It says, they said to Rabbi Yochanan, did you say this halacha? Rabbi Yochanan said to them, no. Rabbi Bar Bachana said, and in the form of an oath, by God he said it. And this halacha is written in the Torah, and we learn it in the Mishnah. It is written, quote, and they shall send from the camp any man who is leprous and any tzav, etc., and they shall not render their camp impure. Numbers 5, 2-4. There is a prohibition against rendering the camp impure, and there is a positive mitzvah to send them out of the camp. Since the positive mitzvah proceeds and is independent of the prohibition, one is flogged for the violation of that prohibition. As we learn in the Mishnah, among those liable to receive lashes, one who enters the temple while ritually impure. The Gemara asks, rather, what is the reason we retracted his statement and claimed he did not say it? The Gemara answers it is due to the fact the halacha concerning one who rapes a virgin, a young woman, who is required by Torah law to marry her, and for whom it is prohibited to divorce her as long as he lives, is difficult for him, as it is taught in Braita. In the case of a rapist who divorced the woman he raped, if he is a non-priest, he remarries her, and he is not flogged for violating the prohibition, quote, he may not send her away all his days, Deuteronomy 22:29. If he is a priest, he is flogged for violating the prohibition, and he does not remarry her because it is prohibited for him to marry a divorcee. The Gemara elaborates, if he is a non-priest, he remarries her, and he is flogged. Why? It is a prohibition that has a positive mitzvah which preceded it. As the positive mitzvah, quote, and she shall be his wife, Deuteronomy 22:29, precedes the prohibition, quote, he may not send her away, but let him be flogged, since he violated the prohibition by divorcing her. Apparently, one is not flogged even if the positive mitzvah precedes the prohibition. Ula says in response, the positive mitzvah in the case of a rapist is not a mitzvah that precedes the prohibition. Rather, it follows the prohibition and rectifies it, as it is referring to a case of one who married his victim and then divorced her. Let the verse not state, and she shall be his wife, in the case of a rapist, and let us derive it by means of an a fortiori inference from the case of one who defames his bride, claiming that she was not a virgin when he consummated the marriage. If in the case of a defamer who did not perform an action but sinned through the speech, the merciful one states, and she shall be his wife, Deuteronomy 22:19. Then in the case of a rapist who performed an action, is it not all the more so that he is obligated to take her as a wife? Ula continues, why then is the mitzvah stated in the case of the rapist if it is not relevant to the matter of before the rapist marries the victim, applied to the matter after the rapist marries the victim, teaching that if he divorced her, he must remarry her. Although in the verse it appears prior to the prohibition, he may not send her away, it actually serves to rectify that prohibition. The Gemara asks, but still, this affords no proof, as one cannot derive the case of a rapist from the case of a defamer, as the a fortiori inference can be refuted. What is notable about the case of a defamer, which is more stringent than the case of the rapist? It is notable in that he is flogged and is liable to pay retribution, which is contrary to the principle that in general two punishments are not administered for one transgression. The Gemara suggests, rather, let the verse not state, and she shall be his wife, in the case of the defamer, and let us derive it by means of an a fortiori inference from the case of a rapist, and if in the case of a rapist who is not both flogged and liable to pay restitution, but is liable to receive only one punishment, the merciful one states, and she shall be his wife. In the case of a defamer who is flogged and liable to pay retribution, is it not all the more so that he is obligated to take her as a wife? And why then is it stated in the case of a defamer? Rather, if the mitzvah is not relevant to the matter of the defamer, apply it to the matter of the rapist. And if the mitzvah is not relevant to the matter of before the rapist marries the victim, apply it to the matter after the rapist marries the victim, teaching that if he divorced her, he must remarry her. Although in the verse it appears prior to the prohibition, he may not send her away, it actually serves to rectify that prohibition. The Gemara asks, but this affords no proof, as one cannot derive the case of a defamer from the case of a rapist either, as the a fortiori inference can be refuted. What is notable about the case of a rapist, it is notable in that he performed an action while the defamer performed no action. The Gemara suggests, rather, let the verse not state, quote, and she shall be his wife. In the case of the defamer, because the expression is redundant, as she is already his wife, it would have been sufficient for the verse to state that it is prohibited for him to send her away. Why then is it stated in the case of the defamer? Rather, if the mitzvah is not relevant to the matter of the defamer, apply it to the matter of the rapist, and if the mitzvah is not relevant to the matter of before the rapist marries the victim, apply it to the matter after the rapist marries the victim, teaching that if he divorced her, he must remarry her. Although the positive mitzvah appears in the verse prior to the prohibition, quote, he may not send her away, it actually serves to rectify that prohibition. The Gemara questions the derivation and say instead, if the mitzvah is not relevant to the matter of the defamer before he marries his bride, as they are married, apply it to the matter of the defamer himself after they are married, teaching that if he divorced her and violated the prohibition against divorcing her, he is obligated to remarry her, and teaches that he is not flogged, as the positive mitzvah rectifies the prohibition. But in the case of a rapist, the mitzvah is to marry her after the rape, but there is no mitzvah to marry her after he divorces her, and nevertheless he is not flogged. The Gemara answers, yes, it is indeed so. The halacha is derived with regard to the defamer himself, teaching that if he divorces his bride, he is obligated to remarry her. In the case of the rapist comes and is derived from the case of the defamer, and the same halacha applies there as well. The Gemara asks, with what derivation is the case of a rapist derived from the case of a defamer? It is, if it is by means of an A42 or inference, or if it is by means of the inductive hermeneutic principle, what do we find? Those derivations can be refuted as we refuted the derivations earlier in the Gemara. What is notable about the case of a defamer, it is notable in that he did not perform an action. Rather, Rava says, from where is it derived that a rapist must remarry his victim if he divorced her because the positive mitzvah rectifies the prohibition? He may not send her away. It is derived from the superfluous phrase, all his days, Deuteronomy 22:29, indicating that all his days, even after he marries and divorces her, he is obligated to arise and remarry her, and is consequently not liable to receive lashes. The Gemara adds, and likewise, when Ravin came from Eretz Israel to Babylonia, he said that Rabbi Yochanan says, all his days he is obligated to arise and remarry her. Rav Papa said to Rava that a question arises with regard to Rabbi Yochanan's statement that one is flogged for violating a prohibition preceded by a positive mitzvah. But isn't its prohibition dissimilar to the prohibition of muzzling an ox while it is threshing grain? Deuteronomy 25:4, which is the paradigm for all prohibitions for whose violation one is flogged, as one positive mitzvah is stated in conjunction with the prohibition of muzzling. Rava said to him, is it reasonable to say that due to the fact that the Merciful One wrote in its regard an additional positive mitzvah, the stringency of the prohibition lessens, so that no lashes are administered? Rav Papa objected to this claim. If so, with regard to a prohibition that entails the fulfillment of a positive mitzvah as well, let us say, is it reasonable to say that due to the fact that the Merciful One wrote in its regard an additional positive mitzvah, the stringency of the prohibition lessens, so that no lashes are administered? Rava said to him, in that case, the transgressor is not flogged because the mitzvah comes to sever the prohibition from the punishment of lashes. The Gemara returns to the statement of Rava, who said with regard to the rapist, all his days he is obligated to arise and remarry her, and that is why he is not flogged for violating the prohibition. He may not send her away. And ask, this works out well according to the one who says that the criterion for determining whether one is flogged or violating a prohibition that entails fulfillment of a positive mitzvah is whether he nullified the mitzvah or did not nullify the mitzvah. According to this opinion, one is flogged only if fulfillment of the mitzvah is no longer possible. So that is a priest who divorced the woman whom he raped. By contrast, a non-priest would not be flogged because the option of remarriage remains viable. But according to the one who says that the criterion for determining whether one is flogged, in that case, is whether he fulfilled the mitzvah or did not fulfill the mitzvah. And if he did not immediately fulfill the mitzvah, he is flogged. And what can be said, even in the case of a non-priest who divorced the rape victim, once he fails to remarry her immediately, he is liable to receive lashes. Okay. The Gemara answers, The only reason Rava stated his explanation that all his days he's obligated to arise and remarry her is, and that is why the rapist is not flogged, even though it is a prohibition preceded by a positive mitzvah, is to explain the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who said that for any prohibition that has a positive mitzvah, which preceded it, everyone agrees that one is flogged for its violation. Didn't Rabbi Yochanan say to the Tana, who would recite the Mishnayot and Braitot, in the study hall, teach that if he nullified the mitzvah, he is liable to receive lashes. And if he did not nullify the mitzvah, he is exempt from lashes. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it works out well. What is the dispute to which the Gemara is alluding? The Tana taught a Braita before Rabbi Yochanan. With regard to any prohibition that entails a command to arise and perform a mitzvah, if he fulfilled the positive mitzvah that is entailed therein, he is exempt from lashes, and if he nullified the positive mitzvah that is entailed therein, he is liable to receive lashes. Rabbi Yochanan said to the Tana, "What is that you are saying? The Braita that you recited is self-contradictory, as based on the first clause. If he fulfilled the mitzvah, he is exempt. Apparently, if he did not fulfill the mitzvah, he is liable. Yet, based on the latter clause, if he nullified the mitzvah, he is liable, apparently. And if he did not nullify the mitzvah, he is exempt. Even though he failed to fulfill the mitzvah, rather, teach, if he nullified the mitzvah, he is liable to receive lashes." Okay, and if he did not nullify the mitzvah, he is exempt from lashes. And Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, the formulation of the Baraita must be consistent, therefore teach. If he nullified the mitzvah, he is exempt, and if he did not fulfill the mitzvah, he is liable. So the Gemara inquires, with regard to what matter do they disagree? They disagree with regard to uncertain forewarning, that is, forewarning concerning the transgression with regard to which it will not be clarified whether or not this action will render him liable to receive lashes. One sage, Rabbi Yochanan, holds uncertain forewarning is characterized as forewarning. Therefore, even if it is unclear whether the action that the transgressor is about to perform will render him liable to receive lashes, he can be forewarned, and if he violates the prohibition in a manner that will render him liable, he is flogged. Okay, and then it says, and one sage, Reish Lakish, holds uncertain forewarning is not characterized as forewarning. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, the rapist is forewarned when he is about to divorce his wife, even though he is uncertain whether he will nullify the mitzvah. If he nullifies the mitzvah, if he vows that deriving benefit from his ex-wife is forbidden to him, thereby ensuring that he cannot remarry her, he is flogged. Reish Lakish holds that if one's liability to receive lashes was dependent upon the nullification of the mitzvah, the rapist would never be flogged, as in that case the forewarning would of necessity be uncertain. Therefore, he explains that the criterion for determining whether one is flogged or whether he fulfilled the mitzvah immediately, violating the prohibition, rendering him liable to receive lashes, he may then choose to be flogged or to fulfill the mitzvah. Therefore, when he is forewarned that he will be flogged, if he divorces her, it is not uncertain forewarning. Okay. And they follow their standard lines of reasoning as it is stated. And Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish agreed in a case where one said, "On my oath, I will eat this loaf today." On my oath, I will eat this loaf today. And the day passed, and he did not eat it. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish both said he is not flogged for taking a false oath. They disagree with regard to the reason that he is not flogged. Rabbi Yochanan says he is not flogged.